Good morning, America. I'm Charles Gibson.
I'm Diane Sawyer, and it's Tuesday, September 11th, 2001.
Apparently, a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
An effort up there, yeah. Now remember, oh my God.
Oh my God.
That looks like a second plane.
I've never seen anything like it. It literally blew itself into World Trade Center.
Thanks very much.
Completely collapsed.
The whole side has collapsed?
The whole building has collapsed.
Today we've had a national tragedy.
When 9/11 happened, I was in 4th grade, and I remember my dad had left. I remember I said goodbye to my dad the night before because in the morning he was going to go catch a plane.
I was either in 3rd or 4th grade, I can't remember. But what I can remember is where I was sitting, what we were doing, and what I was looking at when I was told the news.
My dad was a pilot for United at the time, and he actually was at the training center the week before the pilot that was on the flight to Pennsylvania took the flight. My dad was actually supposed to be on that Pennsylvania flight. The guy came up to him and asked, "Hey man, my wife just had a kid. Do you mind if I take a flight from you?" My dad said, "Yes, that's fine." To this day, I remember when it happened that morning. I remember waking up, my mom was by the TV. My dad was supposed to be on a flight, so my mom was trying to call my dad and couldn't get an answer.
In 2001, I was in 2nd grade in elementary school in Miss Oplowski's 2nd grade class at Ogden. I remember exactly what room I was in, the table in the classroom, and the seat at the table that I was sitting in. I could go back today and sit in the exact same spot. I remember it that clearly. We didn't have any TVs in our classroom with the coverage, but our principal came onto the loudspeaker and gave a little announcement saying that there was a plane crash in New York.
9/11, I remember being in school. I was in the 3rd grade, and I'm sure like so many other people, I remember having my mom pick me up from school, and being from New Jersey, it was just absolute chaos. Well, it happened before I went to school that day, and me and my brother and my sister were still at the house with my parents there as well. And I remember waking up, and my mom and dad were watching the TV, and I saw the images on the screen of the smoke coming out the first building. And my mom and dad were already kind of saying, "Oh, that's not good, it must be on purpose. We might be going to war," you know, kind of having that kind of reaction. And I didn't even know what the World Trade Center was. And so I kind of watched the news. My mom and my dad were trying to explain it to me.
I was in the 2nd grade in my math class, I believe, and I remember my principal coming over the loudspeaker, the PA system or whatever it was, saying that a national tragedy had just happened, but I had no idea what that meant.
I was probably in 1st or 2nd grade, and my teacher was called by one of the parents, and she brought in a TV, and I just remember her turning on that television and watching what was going on and being completely oblivious to the fact that it was actually real.
I was in the 1st grade, 2001, when 9/11 happened, and I remember being outside and kind of seeing like a really concerned look on my 1st grade teacher's face, and her kind of gathering us all together really quickly and making sure we got inside. And I remember once we were in the classroom, she ran over to the television and was putting on the news and was trying to figure out what was going on.
It was very scary because I remember I was like, somebody was babysitting me. I was at a friend's house and we were watching it happen on TV. And I just remember them saying that it was a United Airline plane that had hit the tower. And my mom actually works for United Airlines as a stewardess. And so I was so young and didn't understand what was going on. I just kept like thinking, oh my gosh, my mom's on that plane, what am I gonna do?
I just remember being in 2nd grade, and the teacher made an announcement that the PTA meeting for the night had been canceled. I was really young, and I remember not really feeling affected at the time.
Honestly, at the time, we had just gotten to school, and the teacher said, "We're sending everybody home." So as an 8-year-old, I'm thinking, you know, this is fun. I get the day off of school. And then, you know, my dad picks me up, and he's usually late, so he was actually on time this time. So I get in the car, and he's acting kind of serious. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe this is not good. Maybe something bad's happening.
My mom was a teacher at the school I went to, so I drove with her.
And I remember getting out of my car and then another teacher coming up to my mom and going like, "Did you hear what happened? That a plane hit a building?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe just a little plane, scraped a building." I really didn't realize the extent of it until obviously you get to class, and then you have the newscast going on the TVs. And
my dad said, "I'm getting out of here right now, I'm coming home." So he was gonna fly from LAX to Houston, and of course they grounded all the planes that day. I didn't go to school that day. My parents decided to keep me home because they wanted to be with me during that day.
9/11, I was working in Jackson, Mississippi. I was a reporter there for WJTV Channel 12, the CBS affiliate. The morning of 9/11, I actually don't remember why I had been called in early to report on a story for the day, but I was there unusually early. And I was driving into work when the first plane hit, and I walked into the newsroom right as the second plane hit. So I saw it happen live on the monitors because they had already picked it up, the networks had already picked it up, because they didn't know at that time if it was some sort of freak accident. But when the second one hit, that's when everybody knew something was going on, and it was pure chaos after that.
I remember my mom being on the phone on the patio, like in the backyard, and I went outside to ask her, what was going on, and I remember seeing the smoke, like the billowing smoke from the towers, rising up in my backyard.
It was still to this day the first time I've ever seen my dad cry. I came home from school and saw him on the couch with my mom with his hands in his palms, and just breaking down. He couldn't handle it. So that was an emotional day for me. I remember everything. I remember where I was. I remember sitting in Miss McCafferty's third grade class. I remember them not turning the TVs on because they wanted to keep all of us away from it.
I don't really remember my teacher getting emotional. She handled it really well. I don't remember any not an overreaction, but I don't remember any reaction from my teacher whatsoever. She kept it calm. So I don't remember anything happening in the classroom with kids getting scared. I don't remember anyone getting called out of class. I stayed in school that whole day, and when I got home, I saw my mom sitting on the couch watching the news, and I came in asking her enthusiastically, "Mom, did you hear about the plane crash?" And I could see the look on her face, and I could hear by the tone of her voice that it wasn't just a plane crash, that something truly awful had happened.
I remember arriving there, and there's a daycare in the building for employees and their children, and the playground area is outside of the building, but it's fenced in. And when we were setting up and throwing up our live shot mast, they were evacuating the building, and parents were not even bothering to walk in the front door to get their kids. They were pulling them over fences, over the fence into the street.
For me at the time, I was little. I didn't really understand what it meant or anything. And in the following weeks, a lot of kids I went to school with were waiting for their dad or their mom or a cousin or an uncle or something to come home. And a lot of them never did make it home. A lot of them had died.
By then, it was very eerie because there was no one in downtown Jackson, and no one in that building. And I remember saying to my photographer right before we went live, I said, listen, no planes in the air. And you don't know what that's like, that noise of hearing planes go by, until it's not there anymore, because they grounded everything.
At 8 years old in second grade, I didn't really understand what was going on until when I got back home and I actually saw footage of the towers falling down and planes running into them. It just really scared me back then, and it still does now in a different way, more just kind of how I understand how.
And he said, "I'm not sure yet, we're trying to figure out local angles." And I said, "Well, somebody just told me United Blood Services is packed." He goes, "Go check it out." I got there, wrapped around the building, double wrapped. Lines of people, because people didn't know what to do and they wanted to do something. And we're about 5 hours into this now, and they went from sitting back horrified to, I want to do something.
It was always, one of those moments that I remember exactly what happened, exactly where I was, and now I just kind of always think back to that day, and I always try to remind myself how it felt when it happened and how it must feel for the people that were really close to the tragedy. And it's definitely going to be one of those memories that are going to be ingrained in our minds, kind of like World War II for people back in the 40s and D-Day and stuff like that. So that's our generation's big tragedy, and I think it's something we should remember.
America had been attacked for the first time since 1941. It was a new era that it brought about. For me today, it signifies a new resurgence in patriotism that we saw. It changes how we get on airplanes. It changes security in every facet of life that we have.
Go on, and I'm sitting in the truck, and honestly, until with the exception of when I saw the planes go in and we realized something was going on, I really hadn't watched it. I mean, I knew it was on and I'd look at it, but I really hadn't watched it. And I sat there I was looking at the feed in the truck, and for the first time that day I lost it, because now I'm really I'm looking at it as a citizen and not as a reporter, and I just will never forget that as long as I live, watching that.
What's amazing about 9/11 is that the day is so phenomenal. The date, 9/11, there's no other date, I think, in history that people remember as much as 9/11, especially American history. And I think it's great that we hold on to that throughout these years. Even 13 years later, it seems like it was, last year that it happened, because of how emotional people are about the day.